Boom. All right, so we have today we're going to be summoning elder gods and spirit. Yes, exactly. um, the Talisker 10-year-old um, Island single malt Scotch whiskey from the Isle of Skye, and this is again, once again, your favorite mega corporation, you and I. This is a Diageo product. um, And it's a Diageo product that has drastically gone up in price in recent years, and everyone doesn't like that. But it is what it is. Yay! How much you want to bet? This is chill filtered and color added in the Diageo tradition. Absolutely. You think this is a 10-year-old? 10 years of next bourbon? Does it look like it? Oops. I spilled water all over myself. But yes. Now, that being said, it is 45.8% alcohol by volume, or 91.6 proof, so it's not so bad there. Yes, chill filtered, color added, 10 years, ex bourbon cask. Um, and actually, recently just found out that, oh, I spilled water over the fucking table too. Look at that. Great. I mean, this thing needs washed anyway. I'm kind of putting off washing it. Um, this distillery, they're bulldozing it. Can you believe that? They're bulldozing the whole fucking thing and building a new one on the same spot. So that's interesting. Interesting development. Yay, yeah. Although I see in my notes here that this distillery has been completely destroyed in the past. So that's weird that not only is it like they're bulldozing it just to make a bigger one, but my notes say here in 1948, the whole grain house lit on fire and was destroyed. And it also says in 1960, um, a different fire completely destroyed the whole distillery. So we're on maybe distillery number 2.5 when they rebuild this one. But yeah, apparently they're bulldozing the whole thing and rebuilding it. I don't know how long that's going to take. That's interesting. Now, everything that I know is that they're going to try to rebuild it in exact replica so that the spirit isn't impacted. But spirits are so finicky and so particular that I feel like there's no way that it couldn't get impacted in some way. That's just how it is. It probably won't be exactly the same. Any new distillate coming out of here probably won't be exactly the same. Um, Although another thing interesting, since I don't know what's the ppm here. I'm gonna start writing ppm. I think on my notes, but I know this is not fully peated. It's like partially peated or slightly peated. Um, it says it's between 16 and 22 ppm. So now, of course, if we're talking about parts per million, yeah, ppm doesn't mean everything. There is, because this is the ppm before it gets distilled, so the distillation and how you cut it matters, and some amount of how you age it and all, how smoky it is isn't necessarily dependent on the ppm, is all I'm trying to say. But the ppm of this particular one is between 15 and 22, and we know Lafroig, for example, is between 40 and 50. Um, and like, for example, Highland Park, I think, is like in the teens. What does this say? 12 to 15. Um, so this one says Leipzig is 35, Lagavulin 40, Port Charlotte is 40, Ardbeg is 50. So basically, this is like half as peated as an Ardbeg. So just for reference. So it's not going to be the same level of smokiness, but it's still in there, right? So it's sometimes good to like know as a reference, hey, this is not quite as smoky, but it's still in there. It's still peated. It's more peated than your. Is it similar peated to a Bamor? It's more peated than a Highland Park. It's more peated than an Oban. What's Bamor ppm and a curiosity? Around 30. So it's slightly less peated than a Bamor. So it's peated, but not that peated. It's not heavily peated. Baby peat, it's maybe a little more than baby peat, but it's not heavily peated. But it has peat in it. Interesting. Weird emanating from the glass pour note, like some kind of watermelon. I don't know if that's going to stick around, but so yeah. Obviously colored. This is a colored. This is a colored whiskey. This is a colored Diageo whiskey that's been chill filtered and colored. So, as much as we want to glean something out of this lovely color, we know that this color is E150. Tragic. But what I was going to mention about the ppm is the water source they use to, I'm assuming, make the wort and to cut it after it comes out of the barrel. I don't, assuming, but it says the water source that they use flows over peat. So the water source is peated. I'm sure it's filtered, but the water source is peated, just so we're clear. So that might have some impact, but I don't know how many of these distilleries use water sources that flow over peat too. That might not be that uncommon. I don't know for sure. But I wrote it here, so I feel like it might be significant. All right, so again, this is a we'll say half peated or just not heavily peated, but peated ex-bourbon casks. You can kind of assume some of the normal things you could think about when it comes to ex-bourbon whiskeys. It's going to have some peat characters. It's going to have some fruity characters. It'll probably have some sweet character. The thickness of the glass coating is okay. It's not especially thick, but you got some stuff there. You got some leggage. They're not thick, but they're not watery, so if that tells you anything. Now, one of the things about this particular bottle, which I knew already from having drunk at least this fucking much of it, is the smoke feels really candied on it. It's like the smoky parts and the sweet parts are like fused together for me. Like it's like candied air or like a sweet smoke, sweet smokiness. Um, I don't want to say it's like standing next to a cotton candy machine because that's like too candied sweet, but it's like the sweetness and the smokiness like kind of like stick together. So you do still get some of those pretty characteristic like fruity notes. It's kind of coming across like apple to me right now, but um, there's definitely a smoky character and then also a strong sweetness character, and the sweetness is coming across like quite syrupy, but it also like fuses with like this um, grassy, smoky peat kind of note. It's not necessarily like campfire smoke, and it's not necessarily like really herbal grassy, but it's like on the vegetal side of the peat character. but that smoke and that syrup sweetness are like integrated well with it, almost like they're just mixed together. A little bit of campfiriness in the smoky character. A little bit of vanillas, but mostly just like candied smoke, um, some apple fruitiness, and this kind of syrupy sweetness. Maybe a little bit of like maybe like a slight amount of seaweed, kind of like a salty coastal element. Not much else there. Yeah, there's like a grassy seaweed element, sweet smoke. Um, like, and the fruit to me is really quite apple, syrup, a little bit vanilla. The fruit and the peat note are kind of similar in the lichig, so it's like lichig. It feels like grilled pineapple. This one's maybe like grilled apple. But that like campfire note is really low down. Like it's really not. It's a nuance at best. It's really hard to find it. The smoke and the sweetness are kind of like all together. Right, we're gonna put this on the palate, and again we're gonna do 25 on aroma, 25 on palate, 25 on finish, 10 on texture, and 15 for experience. He's coming across really um, grassy and herbal, slight iodine character, um, some smoke character, but that sweetness is there. It's got a kind of just a sweet. It's like a sweet peat. Um, there's a little bit of oak and spice on the palate, and the finish is very um, wood, bitter, earth, um, seaweed, sea salt, sea spray, kind of all the same kind of note. Trying to shoot darts here. Yeah, like the grassy peat character is coming across like salty, seaweedy, more so than like grassy, earthy. Finishes like medium plus. Pretty good actually. It's just our initial kind of our initial impressions here, but we're gonna give it some more time to have some development, as we always do. Oh, what's that note? There's some kind of sweet note coming out here that a little different. Um, honey bacon, not honey bacon, maple bacon. kind of a little bit of a protein kind of note. So it's like all the peat notes and all the sweet notes are integrated together. They're quite mixed together. It's hard to separate like any of the sweet notes from any of the peat notes, any of the smoke, or any of the grassiness, or in this case, like a little bit of the protein. Like they're all mixed together with this sweet note. Not so much fruity anymore. It was still like a syrupy sweet, smoky, little tiny bit of protein. Maybe some vanilla and like light spices. But it's actually not. Give me a whole lot more than that. All right, we're gonna give another sip here. Nose is pretty good, but it's missing a little bit. It's. I know the notes sound delicious, but and it's not that it's not delicious, but it's missing. It's missing something. It's missing some layers here. Like at first, you get some of those sweet grassy peat notes on the palate with some of that sweet smoke character, and you get a little bit of spice and oakiness in there. That's mostly it. It's like a sweet smoke, sweet grass, sweet vegetal herbal note with a little bit of that oak and spice, and then the finish is like a little bit more oaky. Spice is still present, that sweetness is still present, and it kind of lingers into um, like a seaweed, a salty, grassy note, which I guess I'll again we'll call seaweed if we mix that together. Some slight oakiness. It's like mostly seaweed and oak. And yeah, like medium plus. Like sounds good. I like the sweet smoky character. I like this thread of sweetness that just feels like it gets in together with all the other notes. This sweetness is like spread everywhere and integrating really well. That's probably my favorite part about it. It's not like a sweet note that's like sticking out on its own. It's like combined. It's like it's gotten all over everything. Like it's combined with every other character. Yeah, like as we come back to it, this like maple bacon note, this like sweet protein note, feels like it becomes more powerful. That being said, it's like not it's developed into this sweet protein note, but it's not like giving me much else now. It's kind of like morphed almost completely into it. There's some smoke there. There's some of that grassy note there. Um, but it's like all this like maple bacon note with like whispers of the other notes that felt stronger before. Not that that's particularly unpleasant, but it just feels like I keep going in there trying to find those other notes, and they're not there. There's a black pepper on the nose, actually. Yeah, man, it's in there though. That like grilled apple's still in there. They're like they're hard to dig out now though. Feels like those things were like more present before, and they kind of got pushed out of the way. It's all like maple bacon thing now. Which isn't bad. Yeah, palate's very similar. Again, that like sweet smoky character, that sweet uh, grassy character. Finish is still like, oak and spice and earth, the seaweed, a little bit of spice, a little bit of like black pepper, maybe. But still like very oak, earth, seaweed kind of finish. Finish is pretty good, honestly. It's pretty reasonable. It's not the best ever, but it's pretty reasonable. Um, I like the kinds of notes. I like the integration of the sweetness. Um, I just wish it had some more different and interesting things that were like sticking around. It feels like at first we got some really great aromas. Now some of them are kind of like subdued a little bit. They came right out of first, but now they've kind of like toned down as things go on. The palate and the finish are sort of like continuations of what's on the nose. It is still like sweet smoke, sweet uh, grassy note, um, some oakiness, some spiciness, a little bit of that like grilled apple. It's like in there, but not super loud. It's quite nuanced, I guess, is the word we'll use. All right, so I'm gonna try to give a score at a 25 on the nose. Um, yeah, it's something. That's for damn sure. That's definitely something. Yeah, sweet smoke, sweet like a, a syrup covered seaweed. Like, uh, oh, what's a good note we could give? Uh, uh, Dulce in table syrup. We'll give that one. I think that one's good. That is kind of what it is too. It's like dulse, but the dulse has been like coated in sugar, not sugar, like coated in like syrup. Like you have dulse and you're dipping it in, you're dipping it in some Aunt Jemima or what do they call it these days? What's I think they don't call it Aunt Jemima anymore. I think that's not allowed. Um, what's the word they use now? Pearl Milling Company, is that the name of it? I guess there's racial connotations with Aunt Jemima, which I'll be ignorant and say I don't understand. But it's not because it's not true. Probably is true. I just don't know. Um, Pearl Milling Company, yeah. There's still that a little bit of that grilled apple. I guess that vanilla's maybe in there. That black pepper and that maple bacon thing. Like pretty good. I just wish that the maple bacon thing didn't like take control of the show. Um, we'll call it 18 out of 25. It's pretty great. It's pretty great nose. It's great stuff. Yeah, this one I think definitely has seaweed. It's like there's a herbal, grassy character from the peat, and I don't actually know exactly where the salty character comes from, but there's like a salty sea spray element. So when we put those together, it's like seaweed, like bang on. But everything's sweet. Everything in here has got like a layer of table syrup. It's like it's like sweet dulse. All right, so we're gonna try to think about the palette here. At 25, and again, so far it's been like mostly this same continuation of the nose, very similar. Yeah, on the arrival, it's still like that sweet smoke, um, syrup to dulse, um, and then on the palate, get some of that oak, get some of that, a little bit of that spiciness in there, a little bit of that grilled apple character, and then on the finish, it's again like oak and spice, black pepper, um, and then this layer of like uh, seaweed note with the like oaky note. They kind of like ride together to linger. There's like more sweetness right at first, and there's more like earthy, kind of real bitter earth character right at first, and then that subsides, and you're just left with like oak and seaweed. We call this palette. Um, Not the best ever. I feel like I'm harder on the palate than anything else, but it's not quite great. Pretty good though. call it like 15. 15 sounds good. All right. So again, we already said, okay, so length of finish is like medium plus. I think medium plus is what we said. That's about accurate too. It's like pretty good. Um, this finish is still pretty good, but it's not the best ever. We're gonna focus on it. I'm gonna get the feeling it's gonna end up at like 15 or 16. They're pretty good though. My favorite part about it is how well integrated the sweetness is. And my least favorite part about it is like it feels like certain notes are dominating the show. Like there's some strong notes with some nuances I gotta unbury instead of like multiple um, notes in contention with each other. Yeah, right upon swallowing, you get that bitter earth, that syrupy dulse, some spice, some black pepper. The sweetness is present, and then that kind of lingers on, and you're kind of left with like seaweed and oak together for a good amount of time. Um, Give it like 17. 17. All right, let's focus on texture. Pretty good, actually. Let's focus really on the texture. I haven't spent too much time really focusing on it, but the nice part about drams like this is if it hasn't been super obvious before now that this is watery, then it's clearly not watery. But it hasn't like taken me by surprise by its thickness. So it's probably not terribly thick either. Texture kind of like also like it feels like it comes together with tasting the other aspects of it. I just haven't focused on it, but it definitely didn't come across as watery or thin. So it's not watery or thin, but pretty good. Maybe about the same as that Deanston we had. I think we did give that Deanston an 8. Maybe 8 was too much. I want to give it 7.5. I'm hearing. I want to give it 7.5 again. Uh, I guess it's only fair if I want to give it 7.5 that I give it 8. That's what I did last time. Sure. Give it 8 again. That's only fair. All right. So let's talk about my experience with this. Love the sweet, smoky character. Love the integration of the sweetness with the peat notes. This like syrup sweetness that's laced throughout the entire experience. It's great. I love that. I love how integrated the sweetness is. Um, that really makes it stand out. Like the fact that like the smoke isn't like a campfire smoke. And it's not like a drowned campfire. It's like a candied air. Like, and it's not quite like standing beside a cotton candy machine, but it's like the same idea. It's like there's a smokiness, but the smoke is sweet. Like I never had hookah before, but it's like I imagine what the kind of thing you might get out of a hookah. Like it's like it's like a candied air kind of sweetness. The rest of this is kind of stereotypical. It doesn't do the heavy peat thing as well as a heavy peated whiskey would do, and it doesn't do the like um fruity thing, the fruity maybe fruity spicy thing. The same way, like fruity floral spicy, like you would get out of a non-peated ex bourbon whiskey. So it doesn't really quite do that. It's like a fusion of the two ideas. Um, how do we put this? I do enjoy it. It's tasty. We'll call it like 9, 9 out of 15. It stands out. It's a standout whiskey, but it's not blowing me away. It does do things that I think you don't get normally. I like that about it. All right, so if we add these together, this is 18, 28, 33, 50, 58, 67, 67, 67 to 100. What do we call that? Great. It's a great whiskey. Great.